Super Rugby 2025 round 2. My oh my, what another round it was. Everyone thought that it was the round where the results were going to be predictable, and you saw the score predictor for where people were going to guess where the sides were going to go and who was going to win, and it was like 90 to 10% most of the time. Now, even some of them were even higher than that. But it was the round that absolutely delivered the upsets of upsets. The Blues going down to the Highlanders in Dunedin. The Brumbies losing for the first time to the Force since 2013. I think it was 2011. Is it 13 years? I'm not quite sure, but it's definitely 5,060 days or something like that. So you can do the quick maths on that. And there were so many close ones as well, okay? So even the Hurricanes and the Drua, that was an absolute humdinger of a game, and that was also a close result, and Fiji maybe should have won it. So we're going to go through all that, and we're going to do some video analysis as well on the Brumbies and Force, which is why that game was so close. And that's all coming on the other side of this. We saw that in the Ireland test, we saw that in the England test. It was a really tight game. And so I'll whack it up there it is. Now there's a little bit of chat about the fact that if you're needing to get creative, like, get subscribe, you know the rest. The round started off with a tone-setting performance by the Chiefs, beating the Crusaders at Waikato at FMG Stadium. So the Chiefs are now the team to beat. That much is clear. They have absolutely aced the start of this competition. First, last round with the win against the Blues, then came this win against the Crusaders. They were the favourites going into this game, but the Crusaders had their moments, okay? Will Jordan still stepped up. Scott Barrett played extremely well and really got them some go forward in momentum. And then also Tahe Kimara, their new and young fly half, really stepped up, and he had some promising moments. Specifically, there was a moment when he went out on the left side and he threw a little flick pass, and he was always trying to get there. But the Chiefs were just too strong in every aspect of the game, and that's kind of the story of the start of their season. They've muscled up in the forwards. They were putting on shots left, right, and center. They were dominant at set piece. And players like Tupou Vaa'i slid back into the starting side, starting from the bench last week, flawlessly. He really went to work, and he really showed that he can dominate that space now. He took his All Black form from 2024 into this season, and he's just going on from leaps and bounds, and he is an integral part to that Chiefs pack. But as a pack, the entire side played extremely well. The backline worked very well, and it was a shame that Ramekapohibi went down so early, but Quinn Tupaia, what a performance for his 50th test. Often these kind of milestones end kind of poorly for the player celebrating, or the team of the player that is celebrating this kind of milestone. But if you had Tupaia in your fantasy team coming from the bench, he stacked up an absolute mozza. So that was an absolute standard setting win there for the first game of the weekend. Then heading into the Queensland Reds' first game of the season against Moana Pacifica, who'd come off such a close loss at the 83rd minute to the Western Force. That game had a little bit of the unknown about it. Were the Reds going to come in hot, or were they going to come in cold, being their first performance? The Reds came in really hot, okay? Their attacking flair is up there with the best of the competition. The way that they can link players like Fraser McReight, Josh Canham fits in super well into that kind of style of loose play, whilst also trying to get forward and be direct. And then you've got Tim Ryan picking up exactly where he left off last season, scoring tries and running amok. But he did have some moments which were questionable. There's a flick pass around the 55th minute or something like that. He got pulled off after that. You can't help but feel that may have been a nod from Les Kiss, just being like, come on, mate, we expect better. I know you're having fun and we've put a lot of points on them, but you really got to still stay focused. So then the entire performance was really good. Filippo Dangunu, extremely impressive. Tate McDermott, extremely good. Harry Wilson was also very impressive. But I think overall, the Reds defended far too much after that initial lead that they gained in the first 20 minutes. After that, the Moana really took it to the Reds, and they had them D'ing their own line for something like 10, 15 minutes. And against better sides, that's really going to cost the Queensland Reds, because the better sides will punish them. And the Moana just weren't able to. It was great scramble defense from the Reds. It was good influence of the ruck from Fraser McReight, who really saved their skin a few times. He's absolutely pivotal to that side. And he may have taken the hype about Luke Reimer's stealing ability last week a bit personally, and he decided to step up and take 2 pilfers and a turnover penalty in the first 10 minutes. So really impressive from the Wallabies players that were in the Reds environment, but overall that performance was quite scrappy, and conceding 36 points as well, whilst also scoring 56. That's not a great way to win that way. They would be happy with a lot of their performance, but then they'd also be a little bit disappointed that they had to defend and they leaked so many points in the end. They'll improve, and Les Kiss is now on the board. Their team midway through the table, so it's a good position for them to be in after one game, but tougher challenges are definitely ahead. So Les Kiss and his men will want to improve on a fair few aspects, and that includes holding on to the ball and cherishing it, because they can't afford turnovers as easily as they did the other night. The first game on Saturday, the Hurricanes hosting the Fijian Drua in Napier. What an absolute way to start your Saturday if you're watching Super Rugby. That had everything. It had end-to-end tries. It had the best solo try savers from Harry Godfrey, and also I believe there was another one in the corner from Finaganofo, if I'm pronouncing that name right, the right hand, the number 14, the winger. That was absolute. Those two were amazing, and that kind of felt like a sliding doors moment where the Fijian Drua just weren't able to capitalize on their ability to get on the front foot through their carries. They were playing great Fijian rugby. They had great structure with Isaiah Armstrong-Ravula playing really well at number 10 and directing them around, also playing in the right ends of the field. But they also had that flair where they were flick passing, they were throwing offloads, and they were kind of going laterally before someone accelerated into the space. And I think the Hurricanes actually allowed them too much time with their defensive line creeping up slowly. If they'd put a bit more speed on their D-line and rushed up and actually attacked the Fijian attackers, then they probably wouldn't have gotten so much leeway with the amount of space they were able to create. That's mainly because they were just shoveling passes across. If one of the Hurricanes, I think a couple of times Balin Sullivan rushed up and really shut that down, and that's kind of what they needed the entire time. Also, Kinina Holo had a great game, and he was also integral on both sides of the ball, from getting over the gain line, but also shutting down the Fijian attack. I do think that Cam Roigard is coming back into some form after a shaky start last week, but the young 10, Harry Godfrey, aside from that really impressive try-saving tackle in the 29th minute, I believe it was, or maybe it was earlier, he needs to start directing the flow a little bit better and using the kicking game as a purposeful tactic. It felt sometimes like the Highlanders were just kicking for the sake of it, and that really cost them in the end, and that's why the score got so close, 38-34. The Fijian Drua probably disappointed. They should have won that had they closed out a couple more of their opportunities. So yeah, I think also discipline from the Hurricanes wasn't particularly good. That allowed the Fijian Drua to march themselves down the field. Something definitely to work on for the Hurricanes. Highlanders v Blues. Oh my God. Watching this game, I couldn't actually believe what was happening. The Highlanders were powerful, energetic. They were led extremely well by Timothy Tavatavanawai, both in attack and defense, pilfering the ball, hoofing the ball long, skipping on the outside to be able to provide a line break opportunity and also a try. Finn Hurley, magical. Some people comparing him to a young D-Mac or the next D-Mac. That's a right title with his chip and chase solo try. That was absolutely magnificent. And the way that he caught it, gassed, swerved, goosey, everything. Shades of a young D-Mac, absolutely. I think what was most impressive was the fact that the Highlanders were down to 13 men for so much of that game, and they still managed to come out on top. And I also was a bit hesitant about the Highlanders' prospects halfway through the first half, because their kicking seemed a little bit aimless, and the Blues were definitely punishing them. But likewise, the Blues were also not having such a flash kicking game, with Beauden Barrett putting up a couple of kicks that had poor chase lines. So it wasn't a perfect game by either side at all, but the Highlanders should be able to stick to their structure better, be able to execute better in the contact area, and definitely puts a bit more sting in their defense. That allowed them to be able to get ascendancy where they were losing ascendancy in the set piece areas. So line out wasn't too flash for either side, but the scrum particularly, the Blues had a bit of wood over them, over the Highlanders early. So all in all, really impressive from Jamie Joseph's man. He's got to be extremely proud. He was chuffed after in the post-match interview with the Sky's interview team. And I think that just sets up the season really nice. The Blues have gone 0-2. Who would have thought that at the start of the season? The reigning champs. But yeah, I think that's just a little bit of getting the selections right, still working in the All Black talent, and then obviously going back into camp and learning all their shapes again, because obviously Vern Cotter's still wanting to go to get better this season to be able to claim another title. So watch the Blues. Don't think they're done and out, but that definitely puts them in a difficult position heading into a bit of a difficult block in this particular part of the season. Finally, we've got the Brumbies, who were upset at home for the first time in 5,060 days by the Western Force. And the Western Force absolutely gave it to the Ponies early in that first half, running away to a 21-0 lead. It was just more so about the fact that the Brumbies just didn't seem to play any field position. And that was something that became extremely evident, and it's something we will go into the video analysis in just a moment. They just didn't kick. They received deep balls, they off kickoffs, off kick receipts, off the Force kicking deep to them. They just never kicked deep. And when they did, they kicked infield, so the Force were able to counterattack. And when you have players like Matt Greeley and Dylan Peach, you really don't want to be giving them a 40-meter wind-up, especially if it's a high kick and not a difficult take. So the Brumbies really shot themselves in the foot there early. And it also came down because the Force read the defensive pattern, or the attacking patterns of the Brumbies rather, really well. And they were able to send one-out runners to be able to take that space away from them. And that means that the Brumbies sweeping layered backline moves weren't as effective because they weren't straightening as quickly as they were against the Drua last week, which was a more polished performance. And they were also just going laterally the whole time and shifting balls because they were attacking from too deep. The Western Force forwards really rolled up their sleeves, and I felt that despite at the start the Force were quite indirect in the sense they were attacking from too deep, I think that overall the Force did a much better job of straightening, and that's something that Simon Cron mentioned in his halftime chat as well as post-game, that being direct was extremely important for them. Brandon Payne-Amosa added an extreme punch to the second half reserve front row for the Force. They were able to shove the Brumbies reserve front row off the ball on their own line. And that shows something that's as good as a try. That shows confidence and power and belief in the pack's ability to be able to get ascendancy in that set piece, which is vital. I also think that Ben Donaldson played quite well. Harry Potter and Dylan Peach, again, big difference makers. Their pace, their power in contact, extremely impressive. And I also think Darcy Swain and Jeremy Williams really won that battle with Nick Frost and Caden Neville in the second row. All in all, extremely impressive, and I think Nick White even got the upper hand on Ryan Lonergan, although Ryan Lonergan had a very important role to play, and they were very good with him. Tom Wright, bit shaky under the high ball. Len Ikitau, likewise, didn't quite get himself involved in the ways that he probably liked to, so that's something to work on for next week when they head into a tour of New Zealand. They've got the Chiefs and the Blues. I can't remember exactly which order, but yeah. So that was a cracking game. I think the Force really deserved that win, and Simon Cron's men they've made history, and records are meant to be broken, so congratulations to the Force. Now, heading into the analysis part. So here we see the Brumbies take the kickoff receipt. This is the first play of the game. So Ryan Lonergan here calls his forwards in to make a run. Slipper pulls out the back. Tom Wright goes wide. They run behind the play again, and Meredith gets caught. He gets over the gain line by about 2 or 3 meters. But again, Meredith didn't take that ball there to be able to, run the ball out or anything like that. He was isolated, and he actually didn't want to take that ball into contact just then. So that became a bit of an issue for the Brumbies because they didn't really run the options that they wanted to run. And then that got them on the back foot, and then they had to kick. They kicked too deep, and they weren't able to actually get the chasers to be able to contest that. It was just a nothing kick. If we fast forward to the second minute, I'll give you an example of what these pointless kicks looked like. Tom Wright catches it, great take, resets. So now the Brumbies go back into this setup where they're pulling out the back. Meredith cut out to Ikitau, and Ikitau kicks, but he's too flat. And then again, they go for this tactic to be able to kick inside, to keep the ball in field. And the Force can just return. Donaldson doesn't launch a particularly good kick because he gives himself time. But again, the Brumbies are back where they started, and Tom Wright decides to run. And he throws the intercept, and then they're in trouble all over again. It's just these kind of things which led to their first try, where they weren't able to exit effectively, and they weren't able to be able to kick nor chase on their own terms because the option seems rushed. If you look at the third and final aspect of the Force's game plan, it was the rush out in defense. So from the scrum here, the Brumbies get over the gain line, and Theo Tompkinson rushes out to be able to put pressure on Tom Wright. He doesn't get the ball here, but it becomes part of the psyche and the way that the Western Force are wanting to defend. They're wanting to shut down the Brumbies' space and sweeping backline moves out the back. And this worked effectively on several occasions. So here's another example of the Western Force using their rush defense, just one rusher out of the line. Meredith goes deep to Tom Wright, and Tom Wright gets absolutely smacked again by Theo Tompkinson, who's rushing out of the line. The Brumbies do make the gain line here and eventually get held up over the line, with Charlie Cale here being held up by Tizano and Harry Potter. But this is all part of the Western Force idea of being able to shut out the Brumbies' attack weapons, which are on the wings and their sweeping backline plays. So they identified this, and this week they've trained to be able to send one runner to shoot out and attack the pivot who's going to be playing out the back. So there you have it. The Western Force were ready for the Brumbies to kick in field and to not want to kick out, but they had a counter-attacking. They had counter-attacking options, and they had a counter-attacking plan to go with that. And then subsequently, to be able to shut down the Brumbies' attacking weapon, which was about last week, which they showed against the Fijian Drua, was their sweeping layered blocker moves. I wrote an article about it on RugbyPass. You can go out and have a look how they run those. But to be able to shut that down, they sent Theo Tompkinson, or whoever was in that 13 channel, directly up against the second pull out the back, the second pivot, if you like, to be able to shut down the time and space that person has to option take. And then they defended the line adequately and had enough numbers in the line to be able to trust each other to connect, and then to be able to if the ball gets out wide past Theo Tompkinson or whoever that 13 number is, to be able to shut down that space and to be able to attack once again. So there you have it. Round 2 of Super Rugby Pacific 2025 delivered an absolute belter of a game to finish, as well as a belter at the start. And then you got the humdinger between the Hurricanes and the Fijian Drua there in the middle, as well as the Blues being upset by the Highlanders at Dunedin at the zoo. It would have been a bad day to be a beer in Dunedin. Apparently it was O week as well for all the students there. So that would have been an absolute hell of a night, really. But there you go. Guys, always remember you can find me here or on Twitter at John B. Fergo, and you follow me on the Raw at Rugby Pass. But here on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it if I get your subscription. It really helps me spread the word and be able to keep making these videos for you guys. Give me a like if you get any value from the channel, and then also don't forget to comment in the section below, because I always want to chat to you guys, and talking footy is one of the best things in life. So get in the comments, and I can't wait to hear from you guys. But until then,